Hey everyone, my name is Sean and I work on the communications team at ANCOR. And today I am excited to be sitting down with my colleague and ANCOR's Director of Advocacy, Elise Aguilar. And we are here today to talk about the All In for HCBS campaign, which ANCOR is launching today as a brand new initiative to ensure some significant and badly needed funding for the Medicaid Home and Community-Based Services program. So Elise, I'm hoping you can start by telling us a little bit more about the All In for HCBS campaign and why this funding is so important.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sean. So we're so excited that you're joining us in this All In for HCBS campaign. This is really the moment for us to utilize all of you and raise our voices together and make the case to Congress on why they have to support the Medicaid HCBS program right now and why this time is so critical. So I want to just take a quick step back and really put a focus on what we're talking about here today. So the Medicaid HCBS program is the Medicaid Home and Community-Based Services program. This is the program that supports individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, ensuring that they can remain in their communities and be integrated as much as they choose to be rather than being served solely in institutions. This is a program that, as you know, has been underfunded for decades. And that underfunding has really led to a crisis in the HCBS program in terms of the direct care workforce. And that direct care workforce has been hit really hard as well by the COVID-19 pandemic. And these two things combined have really left individuals without the access that they need for their HCBS services.
So it sounds like we really needed the funding before, but now we need it even more just because of the ways that the pandemic has wreaked havoc on our services.
That's exactly right. So, this is something, like we said, that has been underinvested and under-resourced for decades. But we've seen just recently, as a result of the pandemic, how turnover rates have increased among DSP and direct care workforce, and how individuals are really losing the access to those critical services. Congress did take note of this and did address this problem recently. Last year, you might remember, they passed the American Rescue Plan, and there was funding in that program for HCBS services. Unfortunately, that program only funded one-time temporary funding. So now, while providers were able to use that funding to address their workforce crisis, and they could use that funding to help in their efforts to retain and sustain their workforce, those efforts have to be supported by additional funding, because providers will now find themselves in a place where they can't continue those efforts. They need funding to come behind it and support their efforts that they've already launched in their programs. So while we recognize that the American Rescue Plan was a great first step, we need more. It doesn't alone solve the problem. What we need is a historic investment in the HCBS program, the kind that was included in President Biden's original plan, his Build Back Better plan, and which was included in the House-passed bill, that Build Back Better Act. Unfortunately, that bill just remains stalled out in the Senate, and the Senate hasn't taken it up and included that investment in its current version of the bill.
So I want to come back to the legislation in just a minute, but you said something really interesting, that the American Rescue Plan Act enabled providers to start to address some of their workforce challenges. I assume that's through things like offering sign-on bonuses or increasing pay for direct support professionals. But if all of that money is temporary, what happens? Does that mean that suddenly wages are going to go back down and people are not going to get paid as well as they were before? Or what can providers do if we don't get this funding?
That's exactly the problem that providers are facing right now, Sean. Those initiatives that they launched, those additional bonuses, raises in wages, those can't be sustained without another investment coming in behind it. And so without that additional investment, those turnover rates and vacancy rates that providers are looking at, nationally, turnover rates, I think, are around 43% of the direct care workforce nationally. In some states, it's even higher. So without the ability to address those problems for the long term, providers are going to find themselves in a really hard spot filling those positions.
That's crazy, those turnover numbers that you shared. So then getting back to the legislation, I mean, it seems like even $150 billion investment in home and community-based services, may not be enough to completely solve the problem. But it sounds like it would be a significant step forward for our community of providers and the people that they support. I guess my question is like, what is so important about this particular moment? I mean, you alluded to the fact that we have been doing advocacy on this since last year through the Build Back Better Act, and even before that, there was Better Care, Better Jobs. It feels like this is kind of not going anywhere, or it may be perceived as though it's not going anywhere. So, like, why does this moment matter?
That's a great question, Sean. I think there is, when you listen to the news reports about what's going on in Congress, it's easy to get bogged down in hearing things like the negotiations aren't advancing forward or that the Senate doesn't want to take up the Build Back Better Act. But I think there's still a lot of reason to be hopeful that something could still move through. So right now, as we talked about, this is the position we find ourselves in, right? So the House passed the bill. It went over to the Senate, where the Senate must also pass the bill. What happened in the Senate is that there became some disagreement over whether they should include the same provisions that the House included in their bill or whether they should reduce the overall cost of the bill. And so what's happening now is negotiation over what will still be included from the House version in the Senate bill as they try to scale it back and make it a smaller package overall. One thing I forgot to mention is that this legislation is moving according to some really specific rules. So this legislation is moving according to the budget reconciliation process. And there's a lot of rules that surround this type of process, but one thing that's really important to note is that when the bill moves through the Senate, it doesn't have to get that same 60 vote threshold that most bills in the Senate have to get in order to pass. Instead, the bill only needs a simple majority in the Senate to pass. Because the Senate is split 50-50 among Democrats and Republicans, if every single Democrat in the Senate votes for this bill, they'll have Vice President Harris to break that tie and the bill will pass. So right now, all of the negotiations really are taking place between the White House and between Senate Democrats being led by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, as well as having some really key senators in the mix like Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema, and others that have traditionally favored smaller packages overall. So the negotiations are really at that stage right now. And so as we think about moving forward this piece of legislation, the most critical thing we can do is continue to tell those senators why they must include the HCBS funding in that piece of legislation.
Got it. So that totally makes sense. And if I remember correctly, the budget reconciliation process essentially has like a deadline of the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, right? So does that mean we essentially have, if it's early May right now, does that mean we have May, June, July, August, September, like 5 months to get this done?
So you're technically correct. So the budget reconciliation bill, Congress has until the end of the fiscal year, like you said, till the end of September to pass it. However, of course, as there always is in Congress, there are a lot of political factors at play. So this is a year where there'll be midterm elections in the fall and primaries that really start picking up right now in the spring and the summer, moving into the fall. Unfortunately, as things move closer and closer to those midterm elections, there's less and less chance that senators are going to pass really substantive pieces of legislation. Things like funding for the HCBS program really fall into that category. And so there's a real concern that as the clock continues to tick on this, that there's less and less chance that it will be passed later in the year. What we've heard from our discussions with Hill staff is that this time right now in May, between now and Memorial Day or into June, is really the critical time when something will move forward. So we know that Senator Schumer is committed to moving forward this budget reconciliation legislation. It's just a matter of what ends up in the bill. Right now, we have a few weeks in front of us. This is the critical time.
Got it. So we have basically the month of May, maybe a little bit of June, and that's kind of it, right? I mean, it's really now or never. So this is like pretty much the most important moment in this really, really long fight that's drawn out for so many months already. So given all of that, then, we're fired up, we're excited, we're giving it all we got, we are going all in for HCBS. What does that mean that people watching this video should do? I mean, if there was, 60 seconds that they could spare today to help advance this effort, what should they do at that time?
There is a really easy way that you can take action. As you said, right now is the moment to go all in on HCBS. So maybe you've taken action in the past. doesn't mean you can't do it again. Now is the time. So we would like to ask you to go to the ANCOR website and click on the Take Action button, and that will take you to the page where you can access our action alert. This is a way you can send an email, you can call, you can tweet, you can reach your senators through various different mechanisms using the action alert, and you can let them know that funding for HCBS must be included in this budget reconciliation bill. So again, that's going to anchor.org and clicking on the Take Action button.
Yeah, and I want to underscore something that you said, which is that it really is a simple action that can make such a huge difference. With one click, you can send a message to your member of Congress, and if you've done it before, all of your information is saved. You don't have to look up your member of Congress. It's super easy. And so I encourage everyone to go to amplifier.anchor.org and take that action, not only today, but every day between now and when this bill passes, because we know it's going to pass, but we know it's going to require all of us to be all in. So Elise, thank you for sitting down with me to talk about this. And we look forward to keeping members of the ANCOR community updated about the latest advancements and opportunities to take action. Thanks, and make it a great day.